Awesome. So thank you so much for that warm welcome. It's really a pleasure to be here, I must say. And I can see that we have quite a few people on camera, so it's great to see faces that I'm talking to, and I don't feel like I'm talking to myself. But honestly, for me, it's a delight to be here. Like I think it was Dinah who spoke. Learning is a passion for me, right? And every opportunity I get to learn, I jump at it, right? So I don't see myself as just a facilitator today. I see this as a learning opportunity for myself as well. And I trust that that's, the mindset you're coming with today, and that you are going to be open to learning. A lot of these things, honestly, that I'm going to be sharing today, you've heard before. So it's just how you listen afresh and, embrace some of the concepts we are sharing. And I would encourage you to have an action plan after this session, right? So list out the few things you're going to start doing, list out what you're going to continue doing. So if you hear something that you've already been doing, maybe you've already attended 1 or 2 interviews, or it's something you have been practicing, you can put that down and say, okay, this has reinforced what I already know, and I'm going to commit to doing that even more going forward. And then, of course, what you're going to stop doing, right? So it's always important after any exposure to any sort of learning, in a formal setting like this, or it being just chatting with colleagues or friends, you take something away, make that part of your action plan so that it sticks, right? For those of us who are Christians, we say we don't only hear the word, we also do it. Okay, so it's important that we do what we're. So we're really going to be talking all things interview today, and this is the agenda we'll be going through. And honestly, if you think of an interview, the Oxford Dictionary defines interviews as an oral examination, right? Or an oral assessment of an applicant for a placement. So what this indicates is that an interview is not necessarily limited to interviewing for a job, right? Honestly, I believe that all through life, we go through some form of interview or the other, right? Life in itself is a test. Life in itself is an assessment. And there are many areas where we get assessed, where we get interviewed without us probably not even realizing that we just went through an interview. So for instance, you're trying to get into a higher institution. You have a chat with the dean of the studies, the school where you're entering. That is an interview in itself. It might not be called or tagged an interview, but you are basically being assessed to determine if you're the right fit for that placement, right? And even in day-to-day life, for instance, you are either matchmaked with a guy or a girl, or you meet someone for the first time and you really want to get to know them, right? And you ask them, what's your name? What do you do? Can I get to meet you? That in itself is an interview, right? And people have actually taken away first-time perceptions of individuals from these sort of conversations and these sort of discussions, right? So an interview is really understanding how to present yourself, right? Or put your best foot forward always is a necessary skill of life. And it's important that we understand the basics. It's important that we are aware and always, thinking about how we are showing up in any of these sort of conversations, right? But today we are going to be focusing on interviews within the job space, within the market space, and how we can come across as being the best fit for the job that we're interviewing for. So we'll start tonight or this evening by setting the stage. So we're going to look at a few myths that will probably be busting tonight, or just, talking and reflecting a bit more on. So we're going to set the foundation first, and then we'll go into the pre-interview stage, the interview stage, and we'll also talk a little bit about virtual interviewing. So like we know, in today's world, there are really no boundaries anymore, right? It's a borderless economy, it's a borderless world that we live in. So we find that the world is moving towards the direction of, things being very virtual and very fluid. So you find a lot of things happening, via the internet and just via the virtual space. So it's important as well that we really understand a few tips, to keep up our sleeves as we go into virtual interviews, or even just conference calls, conference meetings, right? Whether while we're working now or once we get into the corporate world. And then, of course, we'll look at a few, commonly asked questions, a few that even some of us consider difficult or uncomfortable, or you're not really sure how to answer. We will take a stab at that, and we'll see how best we can answer some of those questions. And of course, lastly, we'll be talking about money and how to discuss offers once you get to that stage. So, but before we go into setting the stage, I would ask us to raise our hand if we'd like to attempt either of these questions. And please, there's no right or wrong. Like I said, we're all here to learn. So don't feel pressured to say, if it's the right, if you're saying the right or the wrong thing. There's nothing like right or wrong today. We're just here to learn. So if you would like to attempt any of this, and they're not really difficult anyways, so just raise your hand and I'll call you, and then you can tell us your view and your perspective. So the first, interviews always take place in a formal room setting. Is that true or false? And you can also use the chat. I'll be taking a look at the chat as well. So interviews always take place in a formal room setting. Is that true or false? And I don't know if it's Dinah. I need someone to help me to see who is raising their hand.
Okay.
Yes.
That. Okay.
So remember, we agreed
Mensa is
that this is going to be okay. This is going to be interactive. All right. Thank you, Mensa, for taking the first shot and leading by example. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Interviews always take place in a formal room setting. Is that true or false? You can unmute and speak.
Yeah. Mensa.
Mensa, are you there?
Okay, Fafa too wants to answer.
Okay, please go for it. Just unmute and speak.
False.
False. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, what did Mensa say?
He also said false.
False. Okay, great. Yes, and I also see Hope in chat saying false, and Utifafa as well saying false. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll find out if we're right. Anyway, like I said, look, let me take that back. There's no right or wrong, but we'll find out if this is really reality or not, right? Yes. The next one is never say I don't know in an interview environment. If you're asked a question and you really don't know it, should you say I don't know? So is that true or false? Never say I don't know. So who wants to take a stab at that one too? And this time I'll ask you to explain why. If you say true, tell us why. If you say false, tell us why. Don't make me call out names, though. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to call out names. Okay, I see Abena. Abena, can you tell us what you think? If you can't speak, you can put it in chat. Okay. So I see someone here. Okay, so Hope thank you, Hope. You've answered and you've also given the reason. So Hope says false, to never say I don't know. honesty is the best choice. So I think I need you to clarify that. I think it's clear though. You're saying we should try to say whether it's true. We should try to say what is true, right? Don't pretend. Okay, so you're saying false. Okay. And then Abena says true. Okay, thank you, Abena. You say it's true. Never say I don't know. Okay, so we'll find out what the answer to that is. Smiling is good in interviews. Is that true or false? Smiling is good in interviews. Is that true or false? Okay, so let me look for another name. Okay, I see Abena has answered again. Abena says true. And this one is, I think, is easy peasy. So I will just answer that. That's absolutely correct. Smiling is good. There's a sometimes false opinion that to be professional, you shouldn't show your teeth. You should just keep a very straight face, right? However, smiling is good because of two things. You as an individual, you automatically get more confident and more relaxed when you smile. You release tension when you smile. So it puts you in a place where, the nerves kind of eventually wear away just by smiling. So it helps you as an individual. And smiling also quickly establishes a connection as well, right? It shows that you are happy to be at that interview. It shows some sort of confidence, even if inside your tummy is full of butterflies and you're a bit nervous. When you smile, it radiates confidence, right? So, and people are able to receive you better when you come with a smiling face. It's just natural. You would gravitate towards someone who seems approachable because of their smile than someone who's just keeping a very straight, blank face, right? So smiling certainly is good. And then the last teaser here is make sure you come across as perfect. Make sure you come across as perfect. Is that true or false? So again, you can put that in chat, or you can, allow us the pleasure of hearing your voice and just unmute. Raise your hand, unmute. Okay, let's see what's in chat. I see a few answers dropping in. Duka says, no one is perfect. I love that. So that means your answer is false. Hope says false. Ellie Klim says false. And I think Nuti Fafa as well says false.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much. So we'll just move right into it and let's solve the curiosity that might be in the room from some of these questions. So we'll just go right to the next slide, setting the stage. And here we're going to address some of the teaser questions just now that we went through. So interviews do not necessarily happen in the room, right? So those of us who said that interviews do not necessarily happen in a formal space, in a formal room, you're absolutely correct. Interviews do not necessarily happen in a formal setting. So, we already mentioned in my intro that through life, we basically go through different sorts of interviews, different sorts of assessments that might not necessarily be tagged interviews, right? However, when speaking specifically to the job space, right, to this job search process, even when you do get called for a formal interview, it is not at the point of stepping into the room where the panel is sitting and waiting to ask you questions that your interview gets started. Right from the security post, when you get to the door or to the entrance of the office of the organization of the company, your assessment would have started right at that point in time. Or by the time you walk into the reception, you speak to the receptionist and say, oh, I'm here for an interview. You could have started being assessed right from that point in time, right? So there are cases where a hiring manager or the HR manager in charge of that particular role could ask the receptionist to take stock of all the people being interviewed that day. You say, please help me observe their demeanor, help me observe their manners, help me observe their attitude as they come in. There are many times even that you put in all the candidates that are going to be interviewed for that day in the same room, right? And there might be a colleague who comes in just to address them, connect with them, and observes how they interact. So always come with your A game. Don't bring a false person. I'm not saying be who you are not, but ensure that you are exuding the right vibe, the right energy. You are showing respect and manners right from the time you get to that venue. Don't wait till you actually enter the interview room proper to bring your best self forward, right? So the assessment of your person can happen at any point during that interview, even right from the time the recruiter calls you to inform you that you've been successful and you should come in for an interview. The way you respond goes a whole way. It tells a lot. Some of us, you get a call from an unknown number, right? And we sometimes tend to be a bit standoffish, rude. Hello, who is this? Who are you? You know, those kind of questions that we sometimes ask. You never ever know who is calling, even if you never applied for a job or expecting to be called for a job interview. The right attitude anytime you receive a call, even if you don't know who is calling, is to be polite. Hello, even if you don't want to divulge your personal information, you can say hello. They ask you, is this Mudia? You say, please, can I know who is speaking? I don't have this number. Don't say, why are you asking me my name? Who are you? You to tell me, you know, some of these things that we do sometimes. And I understand that we're living in dangerous times and our safety antenna is like really on the high, but we need to be careful the way we come across. You never know who is talking. Apart from even the interview, it could be someone who is trying to help you out with something. It could be someone who is trying to connect you with something. So let's mind our manners right from when we receive calls, okay? You have also not failed because you didn't get a call back, right? You should always take every interview process as a learning opportunity. Whether or not you are called back for a second interview, whether or not you're offered the job, you only do yourself a disservice when you do not reflect back on what you could have done better. Because the truth is, like I think it was Duka who said, none of us is perfect. We make mistakes, right? Even when you get the job interview, you still need to assess yourself and say, okay, I'm grateful to God I got this interview, but what could I probably have done better? How do I need to improve, right? So always look for opportunities. Every chance to interview is a blessing. Look for the lessons in that process. If possible, ask for feedback and keep getting better, right? Until it comes naturally to you and until you get the job that you are seeking for. Okay, if you're not speaking, please can we go on back on mute? Thank you. All right. And then the third point to set the stage for tonight's discussion is what you do is very important. Sometimes it is even more important than what you say in an interview. So what does that mean? Your attitude is, for me and for most interviewers or most HR personnel or hiring managers in the workplace, what you do, how you show up, your interview, your attitude, your mannerisms are very, very, very important. So I'm hearing someone talking, please. Can you go on mute? Can you just check your microphone, everyone, please, and be sure you're on mute? Okay, so I think that stopped. So what you do is as important, if not more important than what you say. Okay, so let me give you an example here just to make it practical. So if I am saying to, I'm talking about myself, and I say that one of my strengths is paying attention to detail, but I'm wearing a collar, the collar of my dress is skewed, is not properly folded, or my hair is skewed, or I'm just looking a little unkempt, right? Right there and then, they're going to be like, this person does not know what he or she is saying. How can you pay attention to detail when you cannot even pay attention to how you're dressed, right? So that's an example that one example of what you're saying contradicting what you're doing. Or you say, I'm calm and relaxed under pressure, which is something a lot of us like to put on our CV, right? And we understand that an interview is a pressure cooker, isn't it? And then you're saying, oh, I'm calm, I'm very relaxed under pressure. I have my head on under pressure, but you're fidgeting. As you're saying that, you're fidgeting, you're tapping the table, scratching your nose, adjusting yourself. That is a direct contradiction of what you're saying with your mouth, right? So ensure that what you're saying and how you appear correlate, they match, right? And then another thing is be prepared to demonstrate your soft skills. We are always used to speaking about our technical capabilities, our professional certifications, all of those lovely things. But the truth is, the fact that you got called for an interview is a testament to the fact that you have the technical skills for the job. Okay? The screening process is to match your CV with the requirements for the job. So they will check your technical competency before even calling you for an interview. So at least that basic fact is established. Of course, you'll be asked questions about your technical capabilities to go a little bit deeper, to be sure that you're actually able to do what you said you can do in your CV. However, a lot of the interviews, and I can tell you as a HR person, a lot of the interviews I conduct, sometimes I'm speaking broken, but a lot of the times I am interviewing for a job I don't even know much about. That's the truth. I might know the basics about a job, but I'm not the best person to assess you on the technical skill sets for the job. What I'm going to be assessing you for does this person have the right attitude? Does this person have the right mindset? Does this person fit with the culture of our organization? Right? So again, as you speak about yourself, as you share your strengths, as you share your capabilities, always ensure you also highlight your soft skills, communication, being able to collaborate, being able to work in a team, being open to feedback, having a learning mindset, a growth mindset. Those skill sets are absolutely critical anywhere, right? These are things that a lot of employers will not compromise on. So it's important that you also take stock of where your strengths are, on the soft skill side, and make sure that you're also highlighting them during an interview. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So don't let it always be about the professional side, the technical side all the time. Make sure it's balanced. Another piece there is, and this is very, very critical, if there's anything we take away today, this one, I want us to take this away. You hold the reins. You really do hold the reins. Yes, you might be sitting in an interview, you don't know what question is going to be asked, you're not sure if you're going to be able to answer it. But the truth is, how you see yourself, even before coming for that interview, the value you ascribe to yourself is so important. And you need to maximize every opportunity. It's on you. If you walk away from an interview regretting that you didn't say something that you should have said, you didn't put all your cards on the table, you didn't highlight the achievements that you wanted to highlight, right? So it's important to be very deliberate. In fact, sometimes I would recommend that you say, if I don't see anything at all, these are the 5 things I want this panel to take away about me. And write it down and find a way throughout the interview to infuse that answer, to infuse that narrative into whatever you're saying. You hold the reins. You determine how you're perceived. You determine what the interviewers take away about you. Okay, so that is very important. Don't sell your power to someone else. You have the power in this instance. Okay, so that is very, very important. All right. So we'll move to the pre-interview stage, and we're going to highlight a few tips as well to get ready for the actual interview. Because the thing is, it's not just about the day you dress up, looking all fly and professional, and you actually show up for the interview. The preparation to acing your interview starts even before the actual day, right? It's a holistic process, and you have to see the big picture and actually have a strategy and a plan for that, right? So the first thing we would say is accept the first time. Try. It's a recommendation, right? Nothing here is cast in stone because we are talking about life. But again, these are recommendations and tips from my experience that I'm sharing. And the first thing is try to accept the first time as much as possible, except if there's something really critical that you can't shift, try not to reschedule. And I want someone to actually unmute here and tell us why you think this is highly recommended. What impact could this have, could it have on your chances if you reschedule? Does anyone have an idea? This one, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so I won't call anyone out. But if you have an idea, please just raise your hand or just unmute, go for it, because I really can't see who is raising their hands. Going. Remember, maximize every opportunity. So don't be shy. Okay, we had agreed this would be interactive. Okay, so I see Mensa raising his hand. Thank you, Mensa. Go for it. Unmute.
So there are lots of candidates and you've been fortunate to be picked. So turning off the first try or rescheduling would mean that you are not available. So they should pass it on to the next person who was equally competent.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mensa, for that view. So Mensa, you're right, okay? So the thing about rescheduling is, let me paint this scenario, okay? And let me give maybe another angle to even what Mensa has said. Let me say right? I'm the hiring manager for this particular job of a sales executive. And I'm going to interview 10 people. 10 people have been shortlisted from the screening stage. We've seen their CVs, they match what we're looking for. And I've discussed with the hiring manager and we've said, okay, we need to interview these 10 people this week, right? Most times we'll find hiring managers saying, Mudia, can we get these people in between now and Wednesday? Everything is always urgent. I really need to close this thing in 3 days. Can we get these people in? I might be like, okay, let's negotiate. I don't really have a flexible calendar. Let's do it between this week, right? We'll get the 10 people scheduled and we'll get them in this week, okay? So now we call Mensa and we say, Mensa, hello, thank you. You've been scheduled. We're happy to invite you for an interview for the sales executive. And your interview is going to be on Tuesday, the 13th of July at 10 a.m. Okay. And Mensa says, oh, I can't make it. So, 13th. No. I'm so sorry. I won't be available on the 13th. Can we make it next week, Monday? That's the earliest I can be available, right? And the recruiter will say, okay, that's fine. We'll try to make that work. Okay, so they actually do get you in next week, Monday. But the thing with that is we have interviewed the remaining 9 candidates within the window we have said we're going to interview them. And so life, this is the reality of life. Okay, and I'm just seeing Hope says another available candidate may take the slot, exactly, which is what Mensa said, and we have interviewed all the 9 candidates. Between me and the hiring manager, we probably already have someone we really love and we would want to offer that person. We are really just fulfilling all righteousness by interviewing you, the sole person, the following week. So you come in, you appear to be a straggler. You appear to be just by the side. We've already taken a decision, honestly. And except if you're 150%, I didn't say 110%, 150% better than the person who we already have in our minds, the likelihood is that we've already taken our decision. So it's important that you respect that first schedule for the invite, for the interview. And even if you need to shift it, make sure it's not too far out. Make sure the difference is not more than a day. We understand sometimes you have to clear your calendar. Make sure it's no more than 24 hours from the original scheduled date of the interview. It's so important, okay? And then the next thing is carry out your due diligence. It's a very scary world out there today. And it's just important as sisters, as brothers, that I speak to this. A lot of people get scammed. A lot of people get into very unsafe situations because they don't carry out due diligence, right? So ensure you understand how whoever is calling you for an interview, how they got your details, how they got your CV, how they got your credentials. Check out the organization. And ensure that the description of the venue matches the office description, right? Otherwise, ask questions. Now, I'm not saying that this is an excuse to be rude, because sometimes you get a call up for an interview and you can't remember applying for the interview, right? What to do is not to blow off the person who is calling you and really cancel that opportunity. What you do in such a situation, if someone calls you, you have no idea how this person got your contact details, is to simply ask, hello, Duke, I'm calling in respect of an interview for a HR executive or HR manager or HR specialist. And you're like, okay, thank you very much. Who did you say you are? They'll say, okay, my name is Mudia and I'm calling from General Electric. Okay, Mudia, please, if you don't mind, can you explain how you got my contacts or details? I can't recall applying for this interview or applying for this job. Or the person will say, oh, you were referred by Elom, who is also a senior manager in our organization. Oh, thank you so much. Elom referred me. Okay, can I get back to you in 30 minutes to confirm my availability? That 30 minutes, you call Elom. Elom, please, oh, these people called me. They said they are from your organization. Did you refer me for any job? And Elom is like, so sorry, I did. I didn't know they were going to call you so soon. Have they called you already? You have done your homework. You have confirmed that Elom truly referred you. But if Elom says, I don't know what you're talking about, who did you say called you? What was the name of the person? And he says, Olamudia. There's no Olamudia in GEO. Please be very careful. Ask this question, ask this question, ask that question. Right? And you are able to tell that, okay, this is a true invite or not. So these are very, very critical things. I beg, I take God beg you. It's a scary word out there. I know in our excitement to get called up for interviews, it's your dream job, you jump at it, right? But ensure that you are doing your homework before you show up anywhere. Now, again, before you actually show up for the interview, there are 3 R's that I always say we should do. Research, research, and rehearse. Research, research, and rehearse. This is very easy to know. Research, research, and rehearse. The first research is research the company. Second R, research the job. Third R, rehearse, like it is on the screen. So of course, you can't go in blind to an interview. You have to understand the organization and what they are doing. You might be applying for a finance job. You know your job, you have the qualifications, you are a first-class degree of finance or economics or whatever, right? But you are being asked to come and interview for a finance analyst job in General Electric. You have no idea what General Electric does. You just applied because you heard the name and you think they're a great company. Okay, so now is the time to say, okay, yes, now I have a shot. What is General Electric actually into? Okay, so you go and you find out key details about the organization. The first thing you do is this organization a manufacturing or a service organization? And it could be other things, right? But typically, most organizations, either they provide a service or they produce something. Okay, so you find out if they produce something, they're a manufacturing organization, what do they manufacture? If they provide a service, what service do they provide? Fine. Find out what businesses do they operate in. Do they strictly operate in Ghana? Are they multinational? Do they do just West Africa and all of that? What is their market share? Okay, are they a startup? Are they a going concern? That's also important, right? And when I say going concern, are they making money? Are they profitable, right? It's not a stretch to actually call up people you know in that organization, or call up someone who knows someone who knows someone who works in that organization to ask questions. It's so important, especially when you actually get an offer. It's important to know where you're going to. They say the grass is always green on the other side, but it's not actually always the case, right? So research the organization, research their challenges, research their values, research their EVP, employee value proposition. What are they known for in the market space? Okay, so have this holistic view, and I hope you are taking notes. I didn't put that there because I really wanted us to have a conversation and not too many things on the slide. The second thing is research the role you are being called for. Okay, you are called for a finance analyst role. Financial analysis could cover so many things. It could be just analyzing the books, the balance sheet, whatever, at the end of a cycle. Either it's a monthly cycle, quarterly cycle, annual cycle, checking the entries in and out. It could be more on the commercial side. It could be analyzing profit, sales, bad debt, whatever, right? So you need to also understand the role. And how do you do that? From the job description, right? Take a critical look at the job description that is, on the advert, and make sure you have a very good understanding of what this job entails. If there's anything that is a gray area, note it down and ask it during the interview, right? Usually best practice as an interviewer is to explain the scope of the job. That's the first thing you should do after introductions. So always make it a point of duty to note your questions and ask. It just gives you an edge. It shows that I have taken my time to research. I've taken my time to ask critical questions to really understand the job and how I can add value. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't know, right? So to have that edge over other candidates is to really understand and be able to summarize what the organization does and what that role entails, okay? And the last R is rehearse. Rehearse. Stand in front of the mirror, play dress up if you need to, but do everything that makes you comfortable for the D-Day, okay? Many times, my husband goes for an interview, we sit down, we do a mock interview, I ask him questions. That's, one of the perks of having a HR manager as a wife. But even on my side as well, if I need to do, go in for an interview or even going for a presentation, that sometimes I present in front of my husband, or my tone is, how I sound. Sometimes I time myself, right? So these things are very, very important. Rehearse until you're comfortable in your own skin, comfortable with your words, okay? It's so, so important. There are sometimes you want to use a word, you don't quite know how to pronounce it, or even pronounce the name of the company. Ensure that you check, you find out, okay? Some of you, just as a joke, General Electric acquired Baker Hughes, right? This is public news, it's in the public domain, a few years ago. And there was a time we hired, but we were keeping, somehow the names were still different. We're still saying Baker Hughes AG company, right? And then we're hiring someone into that arm of the business, even though now we are separate, right? But at that time, we're hiring someone into that arm of the business. And the person comes in and says, oh, I'm so delighted to be a part of Baker Hughes, right? And I remember that stuck to all of us because we're like, now, wow, you understand? He pronounced the name in a very funny way, okay? Now, it wasn't a deal breaker for him, right? But it was just one negative thing by which we remember that candidate. You would say the candidate who said Baker Hughes. You don't want to be referenced in a negative way because you did not do your due diligence. It doesn't mean it will not get you the job. Mind me, that's discriminatory, right? But I'm just saying these are little things that could set you apart. If 8 of the candidates are saying Baker Hughes and you say Baker Hughes, because you took your time to understand how it was pronounced, it sets you ahead of the pack, okay? So pay attention to details, rehearse, make sure that you're comfortable in whatever you're going to be saying or how you want to be presented, how you want to show up. The other thing is remind yourself of what is your seat, what is Remind yourself of what is on your CV, okay? So it happens, right, that maybe for some of us who are already in the work environment, or you're looking to do something else, you submitted your CV a year ago. It happens, especially after this COVID situation, where some organizations are now just beginning to hire and to pick up their operations. You've actually forgotten what you put on your CV, right? It's possible. So you need to, don't be cocky about it. Take a second look at your CV. Remind yourself what you wrote there. Remind yourself of the highlights you put on your CV, because it's what was on your CV that they saw as worthy enough to call you up for the interview, right? So if I highlighted in my CV that as a HR manager in my current organization or in my previous organization, I was able to reduce the attrition rates over a period of 2 years from this figure to that figure. That's a very key thing, a critical thing that I want to show that I can add value to this organization. So I want to remember that. Or they might even ask me a question about it. Tell us exactly how you help me, right? So I want to be able to speak to that. But if I don't remember, I'm like, I'll be scrabbling and I'll be disorientated because I couldn't recall what was on my CV, right? So it's important to refresh and remind yourself of what certifications you put there, what hobbies you put there on your CV, what interests, personal interests you put there. And of course, update it. When something has fallen off, is no longer relevant, take it out. When something needs to be updated, update it. It doesn't matter that the recruiter has an old version of the CV. Carry the updated version for the interview, right? And say, Sama, I actually have an updated to be sure you have a current view of what, of my experience or my professional certification. So make sure you always carry an updated CV to your interview. Carry your copies of your documents as well, please. Carry copies of your documents as well. Even if you don't want to carry or you can't carry physical copies, ensure that you have them on your phone. And if they ask for it, you can quickly email it to someone, okay? Sometimes you might be fortunate, you show up and they love you and they want to give you an offer right away, but they're like, can you send us copies of your documents, or do you have copies of your credentials here? And you didn't show up with it, right? So don't shoot yourself in the foot. Wait, please go completely prepared. Another piece is dress the part. This goes without saying, right? You need to be presentable. You don't have to spend $500 to go for an interview, right? Like I always say, you don't have to have $1 million to look like $1 million. You don't have to be a boss lady to say that my first interview, I wore a part of my story and I'm proud about it, okay? So money, my point is money, and again, money is another topic. Money matters, is a mindset thing, okay? You don't have to have money to look good, right? And this is an honest conversation here. So you don't have to have money to look good. Work with what you have, but ensure that you look clean, you look presentable, you look decent, okay? If you were wearing anything, listen to your intuition. If you're wearing something and you're not comfortable, please change it. Be comfortable in what you're wearing, okay? And make sure that it looks great, it looks presentable. Make sure it's cleaned, it's ironed, and that you are nicely put together, okay? Smell good. It's so important, please. Don't leave the environment polluted, I beg. It's important to be careful of these little things, okay? Let me just say, if you don't have, right? Even if you're allergic, for instance, to scents, okay? A simple roll-on, a simple deodorant that just makes you fresh. You're not smelling sweaty and all of that. It's so important, okay? So please just ensure that one interview, these things count. They do count. Lastly, which goes without saying, but in my role, I still see people that show up late for interview, even virtual interviews. Is unacceptable, right? So please, life happens. Don't let it be said that the village people happened to you on that day. Set an alarm. Set an alarm. Oh, I always wake up at 5 a.m. Don't take it for granted. Set an alarm for when you want to wake up, and so that you are not late for the interview. In fact, I would also recommend that you do a route check. Make sure that if you're new to the environment, you're not familiar with the location, if you can't go, our power has gone out. If you can't go by yourself to ensure that you know the venue, you can ask someone for directions, right? But be very, very, very deliberate about that. Don't take it for granted. Don't assume that it's going to take me 30 minutes to get to this location, and it actually takes you 2 hours, and then you show up 1.5 hours late, right? It doesn't show you in a good light at all. It does not. So please, let's be very careful about timeliness and punctuality for interviews. Now, the actual interview day, okay? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the things you should do? What are the things you should not do? On the do's, you want to be remembered, okay? You want to stand out from a pack of several other candidates, some of whom even have more years of experience, some of whom have more certifications, right? Some of whom have gone to seemingly better schools. How do you ensure that they remember you? Okay, simple things. We talked about smiling, having a connection, being personable, being yourself, showing energy, right from when you are asked to tell them about yourself. Think of something that will make you remembered. Don't just say, it's important, of course, to say the basics, say your name, say your educational background, explain your current role, what your expertise is on. If you want to talk a little bit about your personal background, just very quickly, you do that. Those are very important. But what is that one thing that you really want them to know about you? How you were in school and you were the president of the student union or organization, and you were able to eradicate discrimination of a certain ethnic group. They'll be like, wow, really? Tell us more, right? And right then, you've captured their attention, okay? So, and of course, when you are saying something, it should be an example or something memorable that speaks to your job or speaks to your strength, right? Speaks to a unique characteristic that is important for them to understand, right? Or you want to say, I aspire to be the president of Nigeria in the next 20 years. And I think that this job is going to give me a chance to get there because it's going to help me understand human beings and how to work with people, whatever, right? That is something will always remember you. I'm not saying fake it or say something that is not true, but everybody has something unique, something special about them. Think of that thing. Find a way to put it in your opening introduction, okay? Refer to it once in a while as you speak. So that is so important, okay? But the most thing is your energy has to be high. Show your passion for that job, right? Show that you're really interested in that job. Show that you're going to be a great asset, a great person to work with. Remember your manners. Remember your manners. Don't, out of excitement or nervousness, forget simple things like saying a good afternoon, saying a good day, saying thank you afterwards, asking, may I sit, before you actually sit, things like that, right? If you are offered something, now I don't recommend eating during an interview. Sometimes employers will ask you if you want a cup of coffee, if you want some snacks, right? I mean, just to see how you're going to deal with that. So how are you going to eat and talk? Are you going to be trained? And then when it's time, so I don't recommend you do that. But if you are offered something, politely say, oh, not at this time, maybe later. I would rather not have anything at this moment. Okay, so these are little things that you can practice. Just ensure that you exhibit the right manners. And of course, similar to being memorable, positivity is so inspiring. Have a positive can-do energy. A hiring manager wants to work with someone who does not have a negative attitude, someone who will always be willing to face challenges, who will always be willing to learn. So let that come across as you interact. Be calm. Be calm. When I'm very nervous about a situation, I ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? Right? What's the worst that can happen? So it's so important that you tell yourself what you need to, so that you are calm and you're settled ahead of the interview. And one of the ways to do that is showing up early. Don't show up late and you're all sweaty, running, struggling, and then you sit down. It's barely 5 minutes. You've barely gathered your breath, and you're called. Mudia Onwuka, it's time for you. The panel is ready to interview you. You have already, almost disqualified yourself or set yourself up to fail, right? So showing up early is one way that enables you to be calm, to settle down before you're actually called in for the interview. So important. And be confident, right? Sell yourself. Like I said before, highlight, once you have it in front of you, it's so easy to be able to sell yourself and highlight your achievement. You don't have to have work experience, because I know some of you will say, what if I don't have any work experience? I've not done anything. What am I going to say? You think about it. All of us have had experiences. All of us have. While at school, doing writing professional exams, working in our parents' one-man businesses, whatever. We have opportunities to have built certain skills that are transferable. We talked about that in the first session with Madam Anne. Transferable skills. So highlight what those are and show how you can bring them to bear in the current role, right? So important. Be humble. As much as we are saying be confident, sell yourself, don't come across as arrogant. Don't be the person that knows everything. Like I think it was Duke, nobody's perfect, right? So when you're asked and we'll talk about some of those questions, what are your weaknesses? Don't say I don't have any weakness. I'm just the bomb. I just know my stuff. You think people don't say these things? People say these things, right? I'm just an expert. I can do this. Please be humble, balance it, all right? We've spoken about highlighting your achievements, ask questions. At the end, they would always ask you, do you have any questions for us? I mentioned that earlier. Ensure you have 1 or 2 questions. There's no way if you research the organization, research the role, rehearse, whatever, talk to people that work in that organization. There is no way you will not have 1 or 2 questions. Or even as the interview is going on, you hear something and you're not really sure what that means. Note it down, ask questions. It shows that you're a curious person. It shows that you have a learning mindset. Don't they ask you, do you have any questions? You say, no, I don't have any questions. Really? No, please. It's a no for any interview, right? Then if you can, send a post-interview thank you note, right? Before you go, thank them. Say, is it okay if I, call you for, to follow up? Right? Is it okay if I call you in about 2 weeks to follow up? They'll tell you if it's okay. They'll tell you if it's not them, who you should contact, right? But it's important to get a contact. If it's not the recruiter, get someone that you can follow up on. That shows interest. That shows intentionality, okay? So it's important that you follow up. If you have a contact person, that is on the panel interview, send a thank you note. It's usually well received, okay? Now, on the don'ts, don't be late. Established, do not argue, right? There might be a time that someone says something on the professional side and it's different from what you've experienced. Don't start an arguing match because you want to prove that you know. You might say something like, because again, don't agree also to everything. Some things are a test, right? Be yourself, be honest, but don't be offensive. That's the idea, right? So if someone says something on the panel and they say, you know, in our experience in this job, 2 plus 3 equals 4. What do you think? You'll be like, 2 plus 3 is not 4. So I completely disagree with that. 2 plus 3 is 5. Most people know, right? You can go like, oh, can you expatiate a bit more, sir, when you say 2 plus 3 equals 4? Because from my experience, 2 plus 3 is actually equal to 5. And this is the reason why I say that, da, 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 da. So you explain it, right? And they will say, oh, okay, you're right. Or they'll say, okay, thank you for that. Okay, but don't enter into an arguing match and don't be offensive, even when you disagree. Sometimes it's a test. Okay, never lie. Don't lie on your CV. Don't lie during the interview. Don't say what you have not done. Because trust me, you might lie to get into the job, but in the first 3 months, they sack you. To what end is that, right? Because you say that you can operate this machinery, and then you get on the job, and this first day, second day of work, they tell you to go and operate machinery, and you're struggling. To what end, right? So do not lie. Now, remember one of the questions we asked. Is it okay to say, I don't know? Never say, I don't know. The truth is there's a balance. When you're asked a question that you really don't know, don't say, I don't know. Really, don't say, I don't know. But so that question is neither true nor false, but don't ever say, I don't know. Rather, you have to be honest as well. But rather than just saying, I don't know and leaving it there, you can say, if it's something like that that needs you to research on, you can say, I really don't know much about this, but I'm willing to get back to you on this, right? Or I've not had a lot of experience in this area, but this is certainly something that I can learn. I have, I have a very high learning capacity. You can even give an example of something you did, a project which you did not have skills on, but you took up the challenge and you learned it, right? So don't form what you don't have, but at the same time, don't just be like, I don't know, because you want to be honest. Just say, I don't know. No, say it that you don't have that experience, but at the same time, show that you are willing to learn, you have a capacity to learn, or if it's something that maybe you need to think about, right? It happens to us. There's a mental block sometimes. They ask you about something, you can't remember right at that time. Instead of stammering, just say, and it's okay to also pause and think. That shows that you're a reflective person. So you can pause and think and say, can I get back to you on that? I just need a bit of time to think through that. I can't think about that right at this moment, but before the end of the interview, please remind me. I'll give you an answer to that. It's totally fine. It shows that you are confident. It shows that you are real, right? So it's so important. Do not lie. Don't pretend to understand if you don't, right? Ask questions. Ask for them to repeat themselves if you don't understand, okay? Don't speak negatively about your current job. Don't do that. It might be the fact that you're leaving because your boss is nasty. It happens. It could be that you're not satisfied with the pay. It does happen, right? There could be several reasons why you're dissatisfied with your current job, but don't speak negatively about your current employer, right? Because if you do that, then these ones who are trying to hire you will say, oh, this is the same way you speak about us. This person is never going to be good for our brand. Okay, so there's a way that you can talk about that, about such experiences without it coming across as if you're dissing your current employers. And we'll talk about that in the questions. Don't make excuses. If you're not familiar with something, I'm not familiar with something, where nobody is perfect. Even the hiring manager or whoever, there are things they don't know. There are things you will teach them, right? So don't make excuses. Don't come across as being defensive. It doesn't look good at all, okay? Don't get too familiar. There was a case that went viral on social media maybe last year or so, where people were debating whether the way the HR manager reacted was good or bad, whatever. But the truth is, the candidate was overstretched and overreached, right? I don't know if you. Hello? Okay. So please unmute again. Okay. Okay, and I'm seeing comments in the section. Thank you. Keep them coming. Okay. So what was I saying? Okay, so there was this, viral case on social media where the candidate did very well, but at the end said, I love how you smell, or I can't remember. You look really beautiful, or, thought they were paying a compliment, but didn't go over very well. So don't try to be too familiar. Stay within your lane. Your own is to come to answer questions, show the best view of yourself, and say thank you. Thank you is the best compliment. Thank you. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Which one is, I love your hair. I love the way you smell. You really look very curvy, or some silly things that I hear these days that people say. I'm not, no one has said it to me. Oh. But please don't get overly familiar, okay? Then don't discuss money. We like money. Money is good, but don't discuss money until you have been offered, we have been presented an offer, okay? Don't discuss money, please, until you are presented an offer. Don't say, please, how much does this job pay? Okay? So I hope you've learned quite a bit of tips here. But before we go to the, so after this, we're going to quickly go through, and I'm cognizant of time, so I'm looking at the time, so we'll have some time for questions. But before we go to, well, that one is very quick, virtual interviewing and then frequently asked questions, which I want us to spend some time on. Let's just quickly go through a teaser. And this one, I want to be sure you are all still awake. So I'm going to be asking you to put your answers in chats, okay? If you feel comfortable on muting, please feel free to do that as well. I'll be looking at those who raise their hands. So the first question, in a virtual interview, the light should be in front of you, true or false? Let's do this very quickly, please, because of time. Okay? In a virtual interview, the light should be in front of you. Please put it in chat, okay? And start thinking about the other questions. Don't speak negatively about your current employer, true or false. Let's know if you were sleeping or you're awake. You're still awake. Where's everybody? Where is everybody? Okay, so we have 2 truths in chat. I'm seeing Favor. Favor, thank you, welcome. I was going to say that it's the same people answering questions all the time, but I'm seeing a few more names. Monica, thank you. So we see a mix of true and false. Okay, very good. All right, so we'll find out if that's true or false, whether the light should be in front of you or behind you, okay? In a virtual interview. Don't speak negatively about your current employer. Is that true or false? This one, I'm going to answer for all of us. True. Thank you, Linda. True. Please, don't speak negatively about your current employer, no matter how mean they have been. Don't do that. It's not even Christian-like, okay? Whatever is true, whatever is lovely, whatever is a good report, whether it be of any virtue, whether it be of any praise, think of these things. Okay. The other thing, wait, please, Eniola said false. Eniola said false. Sorry, I need to check. Undo said false. Frederica said false. False on which one, please? Is it about speaking negatively about your current employer? Don't speak negatively about your current employer. Is it false?
Mudia, they are putting 3, so they're answering number 3.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So number 3 is false. I was afraid. Thank you, Elo. So you can wear anything since it's a virtual interview. False. Thank you. So Undo, Federica, and Eniola, thank you so much. My apologies. I missed that out. Okay. And I'm saying, I see Courage also saying false on number 3. Thank you so much. Then the last one, number 4, demand for the salary that you want. Okay, I see Hope has said false. Undo again has said false. I saw another number 4. And Abena has said false. Okay, fantastic. So we'll speak about these things in the next few minutes, and I'm going to be quite fast. Please bear with me. I really want time for questions, okay? So now we'll move on to virtual interview tips, and I'm just going to go straight into this. First, test your technology, okay? Be clear what type of technology you're going to use for the interview. Don't assume. Because you have Skype doesn't mean that it's going to be Skype, right? So find out what means you're going to use. Is it going to be Zoom? Is it going to be Microsoft Teams? Whatever that might be. Ensure that you have it, you're prepared. If you don't have the app, you get the app. Find out what is going to be required. Do I have to put on video? Most virtual interviews, you'll be asked to put on your video, right? So come dressed and ready for that. Before then, don't join late, please. It's horrible that people show up for virtual interviews late, either because they did not test, they did not check, they didn't have data. Like, please, you have to be completely ready. So join at least 5 minutes early, check your audio, be sure that it's working. There's a place, in most of these apps where you can talk and you see if the microphone is moving, right? So you know that the audio is working. So important, okay? Wear appropriate dressing. Answer to the other question. Don't say because it's a virtual interview, you can show up casually. Don't wear a t-shirt, right? Don't wear a t-shirt like I'm wearing. It's an interview. So show up the way you will show up for the physical interview. Dress the part, okay? Look great. Make sure you have your face done. If you use makeup, if you don't use makeup, make sure that your face is, is presentable. You're not having splotches and splashes on your face. Your hair is neat and nice, okay? Last thing, limit distractions. Yes, most of us are working from home, right? We might continue to work from home for a very long time, but even if you have children in your house, whatever, dogs, all of those things, just try to limit it. That's why I didn't say eliminate. You really can't eliminate. Is a tall order to say eliminate every sort of distraction, right? But try to limit it to the barest minimum. People will understand if just like my daughter walked up. I don't know if you guys saw her. I was trying to get into the video, but things happen, right? But limit it. It shouldn't be a constant during the interview. Use professional body language. Unfortunately, I've actually interviewed someone for a very high profile job, and this was how the lady sat. Can you see me? This was how the lady sat throughout. She would do this. She would slouch. Senior person, no kidding, right? This was like maybe 2-3 years ago. Virtual interviewing was not too common, but I mean, we're a global organization, right? And we had to do that because the person was in another location. And when I debriefed to the hiring manager, because the hiring manager and I were on the call, and that was the first thing he said. I can't believe this, right? So please, people take note. We take note of these things. You sit up, don't slouch. Maintain eye contact with the camera. It's fine. Sometimes you might want to look away because you're talking. It happens, but don't talk and be looking down, looking away. Act like you're actually in the room. Look the person on the video like you're looking at them in real life, right? Be audible. Ask. Remember, I asked when I started, I said, can you hear me? Because it's important, right? It's virtual. I can't hear myself. So I need to ask. So ask to be sure that you're being heard, right? You might have spoken 3 minutes and they now tell you we didn't hear you. It destabilizes you. So first of all, check to be sure that you're heard. Be natural and authentic, right? I know some people tend to prefer virtual interviews. It's just more comfortable. You don't have to travel a distance and all. But I've heard a lot of people also say they like virtual interviews because they can read from their CV, they can write down and read. We can tell when you're reading from a script. Trust me, we can tell. Okay, so don't read from a script. Don't memorize. It shows. You can write down your key points. Remember, I advised that earlier. Write out some key points. Write out the things you want to be sure that you speak to in the interview. Write out your key strengths. Write out your key achievements. Write out the points you want to speak to when they ask you about yourself. right? Maybe you want to have a flow, a particular flow. So you write it down, okay? Because the truth is, when you start out and you have these points written down in a virtual interview, it helps you to get grounded because you have a guide, right? So you're grounded. You might even realize that going forward, you don't even have to refer to your notes, right? It's just a free flow. But those simple notes are sometimes useful, but not a script. Don't write a script and start reading for me verbatim. It's a no-no. Okay. Now we talked about lighting, right? Those of you who said it should be in front, you are correct. The source of light should be in front. Like right now, I'm in a very dark room. I don't know if this will make a difference. Did you notice anything? Did you notice anything right now? Let me see if you did in the chat. Thank you for the comments. Oh, fantastic. Someone has even answered. Scrolling down this thing is not. So it says the light should be in front of you, but the direct source should not be visible in the window. Exactly. So I don't know if you noticed anything that happened right now. Propel 2, yes. Sorry. Whoever is behind Propel 2 said yes. And let me show you. This is what I have in front of my screen. I have it right in front of my laptop. So it's not very bright because it's not fully charged, but the room is really, really dark. I don't know. I think it's going to rain or something. So you can see what that does. I put it right in front of my camera of my laptop, just the back of my laptop. So you can see how it brightened me a tad better, right? So it's important that you have your lighting source. Again, not direct light. I could use this direct light because it's not too bright, so it doesn't wash you out. But you can sit in front of a window, or you can use this trick. If you don't have a light, like a light bulb in front of you, you can use like a small lantern, rechargeable lantern, just put in front of you so that your face is visible. In a virtual interview, it's important that people see your face. Remember, you want to be memorable. So when they see your face, they hear you talk, they watch you as you express yourself, it helps you to be remembered better. And again, I said this before, it's okay to ask for a question to be repeated. Sometimes in virtual interviews, people talk very fast or they use accents, ask if you can't really hear. Okay, there's no shame in asking. Okay. Now, this one is interesting. And for this, guys, please, oh goodness, we don't really have time. We just have 30 minutes more. I really want us to have sort of like a quick mock interview thing, but we can't do that. But maybe for one or two questions, I'll ask how you think you should answer those questions. But I'll just run through this. These are common questions that gets asked in almost every interview. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? Give us a quick introduction about yourself. You will hear that in every interview, okay? Because they want to get to know you. They don't know you, right? So there are some questions here that you hear all the time, and it's sort of like expo. You already know that most of these questions come through, okay? So how about actually preparing for them in advance? Okay. Now, tell us about yourself. Basically, here, they are not asking you for your life history. Please. Don't go and use 15 minutes, 30 minutes telling us about yourself. We have your CV. Sorry, let me just pause. I'm hearing some background noise. Is anyone trying to catch my attention? Okay, so please, if you're not speaking, please go on mute so that we limit the distractions. Okay, so tell us about yourself. Is not to give us a history of how you were born, how you started working at 6 months, how, pap was your favorite food growing up, and how you did not really have money to enter school. You had to fry gari to make money. Please, we don't want the life history. As interesting as it may be, you have to consolidate that very quickly. Do not speak for more than 5 minutes. This is one piece you should rehearse, most definitely. Rehearse it. Tell us about yourself. We're asking you a quick summary of your professional experience And sometimes you can infuse a little bit about your personal self and maybe add that one interesting fact that keeps you remembered, right? So for instance, very quickly, I can say, oh, my name is Mudia Onwuka. Everyone calls me Mudia. Please feel free to call me Mudia for short. I know Mudia is a mouthful. So you're free to call me Mudia. I'm currently HR manager for Sub-Saharan Africa. I've been with my current company for 10 years. And in my current role, I manage people, and I try to ensure that the performance of our teams are aligned to the business objective and the business goals. And the way I do that is through constant coaching, through reiterating the cultures and values of the organization, and really calling out, having those courageous conversations to call out the things that are not in alignment with what we want to see in our teams. On the personal side, I'm married with 3 children, and I've been married now for 10 years. There's one thing that I'm really passionate about, and that is about growing young women to be their best selves. I believe that women can have it all, and I'm really, passionate about, coaching women and using my own life example as using my own life story as an example that you can be both a wife, a mother, an employer, and have even your own business on the side and be successful at all of that. And the way that I do this is that I run, the Propel Ladies organization. Hello, ma'am, I'm stealing your show. But, you will, if you say that, I've not spent up to 3 minutes. Okay, of course, I'll be slower if it's an interview, but I've not spent up to 3 minutes. I've highlighted my professional summary, my experience. I've said one thing that I do for my current organization, right? I have said a little bit about my personal self, and then I have shown one interest about what I do, how I go above and beyond to, make a difference. Okay, so please, let's do that. Then there's also a question about, tell us about a time when you have done this. So how do you do that? You have to think STAR, right? And STAR is not an acronym I created. This is from the 360-degree career book. A friend of mine, Faith Akintunde, wrote that book. So talk about the situation, right? Tell us about a time where you had to give bad news to your boss. Talk about the time when that happened. Tell them what you actually did and what was the outcome. What did you learn from it? Why do you want this job? They're asking you precisely what interests you about this job. Like I said, this is not the time to say, I'm unhappy in my current job, this, that. Talk about what is interesting for you, right? This is an opportunity for me to work in a bigger organization, to work with in a multinational company. This is like the next phase of my career that I've always aspired to be. But also, I also believe that I have the right skills and value for this job. And if given the opportunity, I'll be able to actually make a difference in the organization. In that way, you've told why the job is good for you, why you're interested in this job. And you've also told them why they should have you, right? So don't be selfish. Don't let it be one way, right? What did you dislike about your last job? They asked this question. Now you have to use wisdom. I saw someone that said, be wise. Don't what you dislike about it. Don't now say, you now start talking. This is how they did this to me. You can say something like, oh, I'm really grateful for where I am today, what I have done, but I still think that right now there is an opportunity for me to do more. And currently I don't have that experience doesn't exist in my current organization. We're a very small startup, and we have actually done the best that we can do at this point. So I needed to look outwards to be able to grow my expertise. Simple, right? What are your weaknesses? This is not for you to say something that can actually destroy your chances of getting the job. When they ask you about your weaknesses in an interview, it's really to ask you, what are the things you can improve on? Okay, so mention something that is really something you're working on, but you are really trying to improve on. Think about some feedback you've gotten in the past, right, that you can actually work on, and you can highlight that. An example for me that I've used before is I need to be more assertive. I've received feedback that sometimes I shy away from direct conversations, and this is how. Remember, when they ask you about your weaknesses, when you say it, make sure you mention how you're working towards it, right? Always make sure you leave that on the table, that this is how I'm working towards it. They don't expect you to be perfect. They just want to see that you are willing to learn and to improve. Why should we consider you for this job? Grab this opportunity. Spend time talking about your values, your skill set, your attitude, your experience. How do you respond to criticism? This is not, even if you don't like criticism, you don't like it. No, most of us don't like criticism. This is not the point to say I don't like criticism. This is where you say, I appreciate and I value feedback. Anytime I receive constructive criticism, I make sure that I listen, and then I take the learning from that and I make sure that I apply it. The most important thing is that if I make a mistake once, I will not make it again. Okay? What are you most proud of? Please make sure this is something you always write down as you go for an interview. They might ask you, what is your key achievement? It might not be in this terminology. They might ask you, what is your key achievement? What do you want us to know you for? What are you most proud of? Make sure you have something to say. When last did you fail at something? Again, they want to check, similar to weaknesses, they want to check your humility and your self-awareness, and to be sure that when you make mistakes, you learn from them. So make sure you explain a situation where you failed at something, what you did to ensure that you don't continue to fail at it, and all of that, okay? And then what is your salary expectation? Now, for this, I'm going to shift to the negotiating pay very quickly, so that we can have time for questions. So for this one.
Sorry to interrupt. Well, I was
okay.
thinking because of time, since we've got the next session on the grow your career.
Yes, okay.
Got a good time to discuss this. This is also an important part of
Very
it.
important.
That
yes. Okay, so I'll just leave this on the screen, and then we'll just open this up for questions. Okay, so let's just leave. I think we're almost done, guys. So don't feel like you lost out on too much. This was just the last thing we were going to do, negotiating pay, and then we're going to take questions. So we'll take the negotiating pay session during the next session next week, Sunday, same time. So any questions? Elom, Dinah, I don't know if you caught any questions on chat.
I think Dinah is having challenges with her network. So
okay.
Until she comes in. But thank you so much, Mudia. It's been an engaging session. I see a lot of comments. I hope you're reading them. So thank you so much. And so for the participants, please, as she said, she'll be on again next Sunday together with Anne Brown. So both of them will share their perspectives on how to grow your career. If you want to accelerate your career, you're already in a career, you're looking for growth, for visibility, they'll talk about it. And then we'll move the salary discussions to that also. So I think Dinah is back, so I'll hand it over to her to go through the questions.
Yeah, thank you. So it's been a good session. We've learned so much, but for want of time, we would continue next week. But we want you to follow us on Facebook for news about other programs that we have. And also, if you haven't already signed up with us, we want you to kindly send your email and phone number via our private chat on Zoom to Propel2, and then, or you can also send it to us on by sending a message to Facebook. Our Facebook account is propelladies@gmail.com. If you require a further one-on-one session or coaching, we would kindly ask you to send us a Facebook message or same by email to propelladies@gmail.com. We haven't been able to get to our questions today, so we would just encourage you to also send some of your questions to us through the same account. We would also have the next session next week, God willing, and We would want you to share the word, spread the word, invite a friend, share the little you have learned with other people, and then make sure you send a little reminder to them to know that we have our last session next week, Sunday, same time. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Mudia, for this wonderful time. We have learned so much. Thank you. Lady Elom.
So,
yes.
okay.
So I think we can still take a few questions. There are some questions in the chat box, so
Okay.
we can go through them quickly.
We'll go through them.
If you have any questions, please, as Diana said, just put it in the chat box. We want to really close on time. There was a question on, I think someone was saying, what if they say nothing bad about your previous employee, saying that what if it's not my current employee, but someone in the past, and it's a very bad experience? So Mudia, what will be your advice on that?
Yeah, so it's a no-no, right? Whether it's current, whether it's 5 years ago, 2 jobs back, don't say anything negative about your past employers on an interview, okay? It's a dark hole and you never want to be there. Like I said, it's not the right forum to discuss past experiences. What you should be discussing and focusing on on an interview is anything that gives you an advantage on the job. Highlighting your negative experiences, ask yourself, what does that do for me? Does it give me any extra advantage in getting this job? Okay, so never say anything negative about your previous employers, no matter how terrible the experience was. When you're asked the question, what do you dislike? Just don't go into the whole, ramble around what they did to you, make it a you conversation. I felt that this was the time that I needed to move on because I wanted to gain a skill set in this area, and there was no opportunity for me at that time in that organization, right? And that's why I'm looking elsewhere. That's why I left the organization. All right. So that's how I would advise. Okay.
Thank you.
So can I just go for it? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Elom.
Okay, thank you. I hope that Setoli, that was from Setoli on Facebook. You can put a follow-up if it didn't fully answer it for you, but I think so. Thank you. She also is asking, will it be wrong if the HR gives a range of time which candidates can choose to be interviewed? So this won't be a last-minute for candidates. So probably feedback for you.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Elom.
So certainly on Facebook is saying, will it be wrong if the HR gives a range of time for which the candidates can choose to be interviewed?
Okay, a range of time when they can come for the interview.
Yes. Instead of giving
okay. A fixed time. No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. Usually they would ask for your availability, right? But like I said earlier, don't push it too far out, right? If they say this is when they would like you to come in for the interview and they ask, are you available? Even if you are not available, don't push it too far out. Don't say 2 weeks time, right? When they had proposed you coming in 2 days time, for instance. So usually we would give you an opportunity to confirm your availability for an interview or to tell us when you'll be available, but don't push it too far out is the idea, okay? Keep it to within a 3-day, max 5-day window, okay? And just try your best to be available for the interview, okay?
Okay. Please, do you really have to talk about your weaknesses when asked if you know you are working seriously on them? Let me put 2 together. And then there's another one that says, you could be pushed further to answer about your experience, as in the bad experience. Won't they conclude that you are not being sincere?
Okay. So I'll take that. And you missed one from Ellie Klim. So we might take that after, just before the one from Galaxy S8. So it says, please, do you really have to talk about your weaknesses? Yes. It's an interview, right? And you have the power, like I said, but you also want to answer every question to the best of your ability. Okay. So like, remember I said that when even though you highlight a weakness, remember, and I don't really like calling it weakness, I say improvement area. Okay. So you're recognizing that you have a gap that you're working on, right? And it's important not to just say, this is my gap. It's important to say how you're working on closing the gap, right? So yes, we acknowledge you're working on them. We're all working on ourselves, but it's important to say exactly how. If public speaking is a gap, you are saying, oh, I signed up for Toastmasters. I am getting experience during our weekly sessions, speaking impromptu, making impromptu conversations, preparing speeches, all of that, right? So you have to answer, but make sure you highlight how you're dealing with the gap, okay? Then, the second one is you could be pushed further to answer about your experience. I'll push this back to you, Dinah. Did you indicate that you had a bad experience? That's when you'll be pushed further, right? If you say, well, I had a terrible experience in my last job, but you see, that's not really why I left there. They are going to ask you, what was the terrible experience, right? So the question is, did you give an idea that you had a terrible experience, right? So again, be balanced in how you answer, in how you approached it. Don't go down that rabbit hole. It's a test. Trust me, that question is a test. So when they ask you, what did you dislike about your last job? Make it very professional, right? If it was something to do with maybe being laid off, sure, you can say that, I was made redundant because the company was folding up, for instance. That's fine, right? It's not like I really disliked anything. But if you did really dislike something about the place, make sure you're speaking about the things that really speak to your professional person and not some of the one-on-one differences you had in the organization. Okay? Don't start that conversation. Don't touch it. Okay? So Elom, should I take that one from Ellie Klim?
Yes, about the
Yes, please, what to do when the interviewer is being rude? This one is, I would say, first of all, take a deep breath, okay? Because these things do happen. Don't lose your cool. Be professional at all times. Be professional. But at the same time, don't let yourself be undermined. Because I mean, this is real life, right? I've had experiences where people get asked unwanted questions, things that have no bearing on the job. Respectfully decline. You can say, sir, please, can you explain how this question relates to this job? Because I struggle to see it. I am actually very uncomfortable about this line of questioning. Do you see? So you are not being rude. You are not standing and walking away. But at the same time, you are maintaining your professional capacity and you are not answering the question. You are pushing it back to the person to say, tell me how this question aligns with this job you're interviewing me for. From where I sit, I really can't see how that correlates. And I'm quite uncomfortable with this line of questioning. So it's okay to say that. And honestly, a job is not a do or die affair. And this is where sometimes we need to know our value, right? Because sometimes right from the interview, you can tell the culture of the organization you're working into. So it's okay. Don't undermine yourself, your self-worth, just because you're trying to get a job. Never allow anybody talk down on you or harass you or proposition you because they want you to get a job, because you want to get a job. Walk away from such a situation, but do it respectfully, okay? Hopefully it doesn't become something unsafe. If it becomes something unsafe, get up and run, walk out, because those things do happen as well, Okay, so never allow yourself to be undermined. As long as the person is not shouting on you or, you know, trying to touch you and it's a question, answer with another question. Tell me how this relates to this job, sir. I'm quite uncomfortable with this line of questioning, and leave it at that, right? And take it from there. Usually they will back off because they will then know this person knows their worth. They know what this is about. So they will take a step back. All right. And we can talk more about this next week because that's a loaded question.
Yes. Thank you. Achu says, is it advisable to apply for 2 roles in the same company? And then he follows up with, do you have vacancies in GE we can apply?
I love that, Atsu. You're shooting your shots. Okay, so is it advisable to apply for 2 roles? No, please. It shows that you really don't know what you want. Okay, it shows that you really don't know what you want. Now, when you're already in the organization, sometimes you can apply for 2 jobs, right? Because you have the opportunity to explain to the hiring managers and say, look, I'm applying for these 2 roles because I actually have capacity or capabilities in these 2 areas. But when you're external, people just take a decision based on what they see. Now, I will caveat that to say, except if the 2 roles are very similar. Except if the 2 roles are very similar. There are cases where the 2 roles are very similar, maybe just a little bit of seniority in the difference of the jobs, or one is offshore, one is onshore, whatever, right? But it's really similar. So then you can apply for those 2 jobs because even the recruiter will know that, oh, this person has the skill sets to do both. But certainly don't apply for a job for the sake of applying for the job. I just want to put all my eggs in one basket. What eggs? Right? So make sure that what you are applying for speaks to what you can actually do. Okay?
Yes.
I hope that answered it. Yeah.
I hope so too. So, Favor.
Okay, sorry, Elom. I didn't answer his last questions. Please, we have www.ge.com or careers@ge.com, right? If you go there, you will careers.ge.com. I'm sorry. If you go there, you will find, you can search through all the available job vacancies in the location that you are interested in, and you will see a rundown of all our available vacancies. Elom? Sorry, Elom, I lost you there.
Yes, you did. But please go ahead with the rest of the questions in the chat and then we'll wrap up.
And we can wrap up. Okay. So it says, Favor says, is it okay to ask the panel how they think you fared in the interview? I usually don't recommend that. I usually don't. Okay. Usually they would say, even when you do ask this, they would usually say, we would give you feedback once we, interview all other candidates. So there's usually a feedback loop, a feedback mechanism. If it's a one-on-one, right? If I would not recommend it at all if it's a panel interview, but if it's a one-on-one, you can actually ask that, you can put it more like, I would really love to know how I did during this interview. Is it okay if you give me feedback now? Or is there going to be a process where I get feedback? So you can ask it that way, right? And so you're giving the interviewer a choice to give you feedback right there, or to say, okay, no, there will be a point where we give you the feedback, right? But usually if it's a panel, I would discourage it because it takes time, and, they would usually say, we'll get back to you. Okay, so don't be too forward. Sometimes it can be interpreted as being too forward. But if it's one-on-one, yes, you can ask that, but ask it in a way that they have a choice and you're asking a question. Mensa says, when a position has not been advertised, how do I find my way into the organization? So can we leave this for next week, Mensa, please? okay? Because there's a lot we can say here, and I want to do justice to that question. How you can actually do your job search in a very strategic way, okay? So we'll take that next week. And then Amanda says, Mudia, is it okay to talk about withdrawing from the hiring process after the interview session? Not what people really think about, but sometimes is needed. Oh, okay, yes. Can we also talk about this next week? And but we alluded to it just now, that there are some times where, for some reason, either your personal circumstance has changed, you can politely withdraw and say, this is not a reflection of your organization, sir, but I really do need to withdraw due to this personal circumstance. However, if it is because someone has tried to harass you during the interview or ask you unwelcome questions, or you can tell that my values are not aligned with this organization, please walk away. Walk away. It's not a do or die affair. You can even give feedback. I would recommend, please, and I know we shy away from doing this a lot, give feedback to the recruiter. Tell the recruiter, the person that first contacted you, or the HR person, I am withdrawing from this interview because I was disrespected by so person during the interview. Give the feedback so that the next person down the line does not get into that same circumstance, okay? And then lastly, is it professional to speak and add gestures? I don't see a big deal in it. As you can see, I talk passionately, I use gestures. So sometimes it's important not to be a robot. Imagine if I talked to you all through today, just like this. I look very stiff and I look like a picture, like I don't look real. But when I laugh, I smile, I talk, I do this to buttress a point, it shows that I'm passionate, right? And I'm authentic. I think we said that before. Be yourself. But again, don't now say because you want to be yourself, you want to add gestures, you're now doing like this. So, and you're slouching. Don't break the screen, please, in the bid to be to be authentic and to be fresh, okay? But it's important that you are real and you make a connection, okay? So important. All right, so that's it, and I think we're right on time. So please, ladies, let's make it a date next week. I had so much fun, Elo. This group they are the bomb.
Thank you. We did too. And I see people laughing and sending LOL. So Facebook also. I mean, there are people following us and with smileys and thumbs up. So Mudia, yeah, thank you for the great engaging. And yeah, so we'll see you all next week Sunday. God willing, at the same time we have both of our speakers on, and then Mudia sharing with us how to grow your career. I think one last tip that I'll share, especially when we're going for interview, what I realized, I learned this actually at a leadership meeting. It's called the story bank. So create your story bank. I've come out of interviews and realized that why did I even give that example? It doesn't really sell me well because I've got better stories and sometimes we forget about it. So you earlier put those small pointers down. So your story bank basically just helps you to connect the values in your CV or your values as a person or the role that you are interviewing for. They're looking for key characteristics. What stories can I connect to those skills or all that? So create that story bank. At least this week, think of all the things you've done, whether at church, at school, and start building your story bank for the next interview. So thank you all so much. God bless you. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please follow us, share our videos on Facebook, and then we'll catch up with you on Sunday. So God bless you. Thank you, Mudia, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.